Kei ngā kahika o te Nehenehenui, tēnā rā tātou katoa. Nau mai, haere mai ki te whare o te reo irirangi o Maniapoto. Welcome to the first series of Te Puna Kōrero o te Nehenehenui for 2022. It's great to have your company indeed. I hope everyone has had the opportunity to have a very relaxing holiday break and getting ready to get back into the swing of things as we head into the new year. This week is, of course, the first official week for 2022, the first official working week for most. So let's get straight into it. Tonight's series has an amazing array of locals who have experienced COVID-19 firsthand, and we're really honoured that they are going to share their stories with us this evening. But before we meet our guest panellists, can I just remind everyone at home that you can ask our guest panelists questions throughout the evening about their experiences, about their stories, and about their situation. You can post your question in the comments section below, and we'll get our panelists to answer as many of those questions as we can over the next hour or so. And all questions will go into the draw this evening to win a $100 warehouse voucher that we will draw at the end of tonight's session. But to kick off our evening, let's welcome in our guest panelists. We are honoured to have Gwen Po from Te Kuiti, Desmond and Jamie Tamaki from Otorohanga, and Turi Murray and Billy Karina from Te Kuiti. Tēnā rā koutou katoa. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for giving us your time this evening, and it is a rather warm evening indeed. If we can begin with you, Gwen, and maybe if you could just share with us a little bit about how you and your whānau came into contact with COVID-19.
Kia ora. So we became a close contact to one of the clusters that were in Otorohanga, and from that, my baby contracted COVID, and that was the starting of our experience of COVID, and how it became part of our whānau.
And I know that, as a mother, that must be very daunting, for your tamariki to have COVID-19. And I guess as a parent, you are following all the safety protocols, the precautions of keeping, you and your whānau safe at home. So talk to us a little bit how was it when you found out that, that your tamariki got COVID-19?
It was probably the most heartbreaking thing I've ever had to hear. Feeling helpless as in not being able to, because during this whole period of time, I was negative. So I couldn't understand them mamae and what they were going through physically to be able to help them. So yeah, that was really trying time as a mother, not being able to help your children.
Certainly some trying times, and I know it was a little bit of a journey for you, Gwen, and your tamariki, and we'll come back to you and talk a little bit about that journey. But if we come to you now, Desmond and Jamie, can you share with us a little bit about your situation, and I guess in particular how COVID has impacted it, especially in the mahi that you fellas do?
Okay, so we're a little bit like Gwen. So we contracted COVID through our child that contracted off someone at Otorohanga College. And the impact that it had on us as a whānau was a little bit surreal. So we were a little bit in two minds of how to react to actually how you would react to it. So we went at it with an open heart and took everything in our stride as we could. But different experience, just because the media has put such a big hype on COVID. It was an interesting journey. Lots of learning. And that's why we're here tonight, so we can share alternative learning for others.
Yeah, absolutely, and I guess you're in a similar situation to Gwen, where tamariki of yours got COVID-19, and we had the honour of speaking with Legion and Tamiri not too long ago, who shared their situation. But how was it for you as parents? When you heard of Legion and Tamiri going through what they were going through, that must have been a difficult time for you all.
Yeah, it was. Only because we're such a tight knit whānau, and Te seemed a million miles away, to try and awhi and guide and do all of that, and just to give reassurance. So, that was interesting.
It was the decision that doing it together as a family, that just choosing to stay home and do it together. It was quite a big decision.
And we'll certainly talk more about the decision to stay at home, because we know there was an option to go to managed isolation facility. So we'll talk about that shortly. But let's head over to Chui and Gillian, and maybe for you both, if you could just take us back to when you got that phone call that you had returned a positive result to COVID-19. Can you tell us how that kind of unfolded for you both?
It was very scary. I was just very scared for my whānau, knowing that I contracted it, and I didn't know what to do at the time. And I just thought of my kids, trying to protect them. So, yeah.
Yeah. I guess it was a little bit different too. So when Gilly first got the call that he was a positive case, it didn't actually come from any health providers. He was actually called by his employee, who actually found out before us. So that was a little bit, we were a little bit taken back by that, and so we just had to wait for the official call from the public health unit before we actually made any moves or decision about what we were going to do as a whānau. But yeah.
Yeah, it's certainly a very anxious and nervous time, because I know that all of you have tamariki. If I can come back to you, Gwen, and getting the results that your tamariki had COVID-19. Can you talk to us a little bit about what was the next steps that happened after that? Because I understand that you had the option of going into a managed isolation quarantine facility. So are you able to talk to us a little bit about that journey?
So when the health board rang and notified me of my children's result, I not long got a phone call from my GP, who actually, she gave us the options of whether to go to managed isolation or isolate at home. But one of my children has previous lung issues, so she recommended with the doctors and the nurses that are on hand up at MIQ that it may be the best solution for me to go up there, just in case, wouldn't know how her body would react to the virus. So yeah, on that note, we decided to go up to managed isolation.
And what was it like for you, knowing that you've got to bring along all your tamariki, you could kind of uplift your whare and relocate, aside from the fact of, having to deal with COVID-19. So how did you manage not having the support of your whānau and your friends around you?
It was a very, very trying time, I suppose, mentally. How are you supposed to uplift your family? As you say, you're going to a place unknown. You don't know what to expect or how you're going to be looked after and what you're needing to take just to for day-to-day basic things. So mentally it was quite boggling, as in this is like a world of unknown sort of stuff. We didn't get no information about what we needed to take or what was required of us, and then just picked up, shipped off, and it was like go as you sort of take it as it comes.
And for you, Des and Jamie, because I know that you come from a very, very big whānau. So what was the situation for you and your whānau when you had COVID-19?
There was no alternative. We were staying home regardless. So when she came home, when the positive case was detected in our whānau, we self-isolated from that day onwards, which was 24 hours out from when we were tested. So we had, there was no doubt in our mind that as a whānau, we weren't going to stay home and all at some stage possibly contract COVID-19 together. But that was a decision we had made as a whānau, and we also did the same when we possibly went to be vaccinated. So that was a decision that we felt we were in control of.
And I know that again, Des and Jamie come from a very big whānau. So was it difficult to kind of stop whānau from coming to your whare and trying to maintain that space, that distance between everyone?
Yep, yeah, it was. The first 48 hours was, so there's 6 of us in our home, so and Millie and Legion in their home, so probably the first 48 hours was pretty much on the phone, so calling whānau to say that we're a no-go zone. And like when I say 48 hours, like right through the night, just to alert whānau that we could be positive cases.
When we had whānau delivering things at the mailbox and beeping the horn and carrying on and give us a text and say they left some vegetables or some kai there. Yeah, it was still good though that we got to keep in touch with everybody.
Yeah,
on mainstream and that,
And I guess that's one of the biggest things too, is just keeping in touch with everyone. And I just want to remind viewers at home that if you've got any questions or feedback for our guest panelists, then please do write them in the comments section, and we'll ask those of our guest panelists throughout the evening. So get your questions coming in. And if I can come to you, Chewy and Gilly now, because I, from what I understand, you both decided to isolate at home as well. Now, I guess maybe if I come to you first, Chewy, was that a joint decision? Did you ever think that Gillies needs to go away and isolate at the MIQ on his own?
Yeah. So in the first couple of days, because Gilly returned a positive, and so we kept Gilly home for the first day and night, and then Gilly made the decision himself. Once mine and the kids' tests come back negative, that he was going to go off to MIQ in Hamilton and self-isolate up there. I think he just did that just to keep me and the kids safe. Just didn't want us or the tamariki to contract COVID. And we actually returned negatives throughout the whole isolation period. So it was just Gilly, and he made the call himself to go up there.
And that must have been hard on you as a dad, Gillies, to be away from, your loved ones, your tamariki, to be isolating up in MIQ. Can you tell us how long were you in managed isolation for in Kirikiriroa?
Yep, I was in managed isolation for 8 days. 8 days because I had no symptoms whatsoever. So I had my taste buds, my smell, I had no cough or runny nose, no fever. And so the doctor deemed it that I was fit to return home, but finished my 10 days isolation at home. So, yeah.
And just talking about symptoms, and if I can come back to you, Gwen, it is quite a challenging job being a parent, just any other normal day. But when your tamariki have COVID-19 symptoms, I guess your anxiety goes to another level. Are you able just to describe just some of the things that you saw differently in your tamariki when you're in isolation?
Well, straight off the cuff, there was like my baby was teething, so she was grizzly anyway. So I wouldn't have known anything really, or nothing rang a bell until one of the kids said that they couldn't smell and taste their kai. Other than that, like it wasn't until later on in the process that other symptoms started popping up. But at the start of it all, there was pretty much no change that I noticed until then when she said that she couldn't smell or taste.
Mm-hmm. And if I come to you, Des and Jamie, did you notice a similar situation where you noticed a change, the symptoms, no smell, no taste, those sorts of things, or did you get notified from the health authorities that you've got COVID-19 and then the symptoms started to appear?
No, we were. So we'd been a little bit unwell weeks before. So our baby who contracted COVID, she quite a bad asthmatic, so she is quite prone to having like hay fever symptoms as the seasons change. So we just thought it was just that. So we didn't. She was, no worse than any other time. So we didn't think anything was wrong. It wasn't till she actually went to kura and came back, and they said that one of her best friends had tested positive, that we needed to take her for a test. I'd had a vaccination, my second vaccination that week, so I was actually a little bit down and out anyway, and I'd been down and out with my first vaccination, so I just thought it was that too, so I didn't think anything of it. It wasn't till she came back positive that I thought, oh, actually I might have contracted COVID. Went down and had a test, and then really ironic, because then I started to realize that actually I had no smell, I had no taste. My body was achy, and it was a little bit with everybody too, but I think with us it was the duration of how long the symptoms lasted that triggered us that this is what COVID is like. With me and Des being double vaxxed, lasting probably 3 days, and then the Paige and F, they only had single vax, so they were 3 or 4 days, and then with Millie, she was a little bit longer. So interesting thing. But like Gwen, we you just battle on.
And if I can come to you guys, because you went into managed isolation quarantine facility, and I guess the first question would be were you able? Did you know of any other people from Maniapoto that were in isolation with you at that time? Were you able to make some sort of a contact with other people staying there?
Yes, a few of my mates that I work with were just been admitted. So I had messaged them and found out a bit about how it works up there and what we have to take and stuff like that. And I think I took it from them, how it ran up there, sort of thing.
And if I can come to you, Gwen, and you've experienced having been in isolation. Now that you're on the other side, and now you know what you know now, if you were in a similar situation, would you do anything differently? Would you stay at home if you were to contract COVID-19 again, or would you still opt to go to the isolation facility? Okay, Lee, I understand we might just be having some technical problems with Gwen, but that's okay. We will come back to Gwen. And if I can come to Des and Jamie and probably ask the same.
I personally would opt to go to isolation only because of my children's health issue. I would definitely go back.
Ka pai, Gwen. Tēnā koe. I think we're just having a little bit of technical issues, but I understand that you said that you'd go back for your tamariki. If I go across to Des and Jamie, and the same question, if you guys were in a similar situation, knowing what you know now, and having been through isolating at home, would you opt to going into a managed isolation facility?
Definitely not.
No, not really. No. It was actually quite good being home together. Yeah, we like being in each other's spaces. So it was all good. Yeah.
And what about for you, Tui? Because we know that Gillies has gone over to the isolation. Same situation. Would you do anything differently?
No, Gilly had a holiday, I reckon, up there, with his no symptoms and how well he was looked after up in MIQ. He got all his kai, made. I don't think he even gets that here at home. But I think because me and the kids were negative and Gilly was a positive, it would be different if we were all positive. We'd probably opt to remain at home and just spend our isolation period together. We'd rather that, but with Gilly, if it was just one or the other, and just to keep the kids safe from contracting it, I think we'd both opt to go up to MIQ and have a bit of a holiday.
Yeah. Ka pai. And I just want to remind our whānau at home to send in your questions. We've got some wonderful whānau here who are sharing their experiences about contracting COVID-19, how it has impacted on them, on their whānau, and of course their mahi as well. So if you've got questions, pop them into the comments box below, and we'll get those questions answered by our awesome panelists here. And I understand that we've got our first question coming through now, and we'll be able to see that on our screen. And this comes from Water, and the question is, what does the iwi hook you up with, and do you get social welfare help while you recover? And I've got a feeling this might be in relation to managed isolation facilities. So maybe if I can go to you first, Gwen, and then over to Gilly. So Gwen, what is it that support you get hooked up with, and does the social welfare services help you recover?
So the services here, I believe, were Manipuro Pet Trusts. They were amazing. They pretty much got all the kai and stuff we needed over that duration of time, only because of the access to it, obviously. But in regards to those services, they have to be referred from, so you can't just ring them up and tell them, oh, I'm a close contact and stuff. There's actually you've got to go through the process of being referred from the GP or the house board. And in regards to relief from social welfare, I didn't require that because the amount of kai that the iwi gave us was enough to cover that whole period of time.
And if I come to you, Tui and Gillies, and I guess this is for both of you, because Tui, you stayed at home and Gillies went to isolation. So with you, Tui, what was the support that you received from the iwi when you were going through isolation?
Yeah, we had an overwhelming support from the iwi Marae Pet Trust, and also the whānau down at the Puna, just kai deliveries. We ended up with so much kai, we actually had to, tell them to stop, because we also had whānau coming and dropping off kai, just wanting to support and awhi us out at home. Toys, just there was heaps of support. We were never looking or asking for support or help with anything, because everyone just came together and did it for us anyway. So we were really grateful for the iwi for everything that they did. And and to those that aren't. So I think the Maniaputu Marae Pack Trust, I don't believe that they are government funded for this. So that was it was just cool to have all that kai being delivered for us. Yeah, but in terms of welfare support, I think like it was up to the like the jobs if for Gilly to go for that, and to he was able to continue to be paid while he was you were in isolation or in MIQ. So that's kind of the welfare support we received, and I continued with mahi at home. So we were all good. We were very well supported.
And I know, Des and Jamie, you stay in Otorohanga, and a lot of our agencies are centralised in Te Kuiti. So what was kind of the support that you received during your isolation period?
Very similar to Gwen and Gilly and Chewy. So Marae Pack Trust were awesome and in delivering kai, but also just whānau in general, like Chewy was saying, the amount of people that rang and offered support to do anything was absolutely overwhelming and really humbling to know that our people are very giving, and you know, it doesn't matter how big or how small. But yeah, Marae Pack Trust, the food banks offered kai and stuff, and like we were like Chewy too. We're telling them, you know, we're okay. We're more than okay. We didn't need the support, and in terms of welfare, so yeah, just our employment carried on supporting us financially through the whole ordeal. So yeah.
I think it's lovely to hear that there is a lot of support for our whānau who are going through, you know, these experiences. And I hope, Waru, that answers your question. Let's move on to our next question for the evening. And it comes from Ona Murahi. And the question is, what does it feel like to have COVID? And can you share the symptoms you experience? And if I can go down to you, Gillies, you spoke a little bit about the symptoms of having COVID earlier on. What I guess what was the most frightening thing for you when you had COVID in terms of the signs and symptoms?
I think for me it was just knowing that I had it, even though it didn't show it. So I had no symptoms at all. So no cough or no runny nose, no temperature, no loss of taste buds or smell. I wasn't achy or anything, so really I couldn't really answer what the symptoms are like because I didn't have any. But a few of my mates that I was in isolation with, they had bad symptoms, and some of them were double vaxxed and non-vaxxed. But some double vaxxed people were very sick, like coughing for the whole time they were in there, headaches and aches.
Yeah, it was a shock, because it was a shock really, because you had no symptoms. So when you found out you were positive, and that whole time we were kind of a little bit in disbelief.
Yeah, I didn't really believe it. So.
And if I can just kind of stick with that kind of line of questioning, Gillies, because we know that you know, you work out, you go to the gym. Did that kind of help you know, combating COVID, if you like?
Yeah, I hope so. I hope it helped, because I wouldn't know, because I didn't get it. But if it did help, I think it's good for the body. It keeps you healthy, so it might have worked.
Probably wore off while
you
you
might have
were
wore off while I was up there.
You were getting fed slowly.
Nice. And for you, Des and Jamie, I know that a few of the whānau had COVID. So was there any similarities with the signs and symptoms between those that did catch COVID-19?
Yeah, well, they're normal symptoms that you catch from like hay fever or just the flu, cold, runny nose, and sore throat. Yeah, probably just the taste and the smell thing is probably the weirdest thing for us. But apart from that, no. But it only lasted like 2 or 3 days, and then they started wearing off. Every day got better after that. So yeah, that's pretty much it. Yeah, we were all pretty sweet. Oh, the younger ones got over it a bit quicker than the older ones. Oh, than us ones. Yeah, so I don't know if that's because they're younger. But.
And just before we go to our next question, if I come to you, Gwen, how long did your tamariki have COVID-19 for?
How long did they have it for? We went to managed isolation for about 13 days before they released us. So, to be honest, I don't know because they didn't tell us. They didn't tell us really much anything over the whole process. You have to ask those questions to know anything. So I can't give you an exact date, time.
Well, I hope for Ona Murahi that kind of answers that question. And let's go to our next question from our Facebook page. And this is from Kaylin. And she's asking those of you with younger kids, how did you get them to understand what was happening, either having COVID in general or having to move to MIQ? So I'll start with you, Gwen, because I know that you've got a number of tamariki, young tamariki. So yeah, how did you manage to explain to them what was going on?
I couldn't really, like other than what the general public puts out there and portrays COVID as, that was all I knew. So I was trying to inform them while we were going through it, but really I didn't know myself. So all I knew is to tell them, this is the process you have to go to. They didn't hesitate. They just took it like that. But it's very hard to explain to them something you don't fully understand yourself.
And if I can ask the same question to you, Des and Jamie, because I know that you're both in the education field. Did that help? Having that education background to try and explain the situation to your tamariki?
Yeah, a little bit. But I think the biggest hurdle or the biggest nowhere about it all is that you don't know. You only know what the media and what the health board are putting out there. So in terms of explaining the process for us, we just put it out there to our whānau that we were going to look after ourselves for Māori by Māori. So and in doing that, we were staying home together as a whānau. So but it's a really interesting question because you don't know and you can't explain what you don't know.
And what was the situation like for you, Tui, with your tamariki? Knowing that Gillies is gone away to isolation. So how did you manage to explain that to your beautiful kids?
Yeah, it was. So when we found out, like I said, it was a shock, but same as Gwen, it was quite hard to explain to them, especially for our baby, the reason why she can't go into the room where Papa is, because we kind of locked them away in a room. We had just come up with our plan if one of us was to contract it. So we locked him up in this room. We put his kai out for him, and so explaining that to her was quite hard, especially because there were no symptoms. So he didn't seem sick. So she was always like, oh, well, why can't I go in and see Papa? He's not even sick. He doesn't have COVID. So just reinforcing that conversation about to keep us all safe. But yeah, and my boy, because he's older than that, he already kind of knew, because there were a lot of whānau and people around us at the time contracting the virus. So he knew, he was just going with the flow. But yeah, it was quite hard to just keep telling our baby, and especially when Gilly went away to MIQ as well. She missed her papa and always wondered why he was away from us. But just having those conversations about he was doing it to keep her and all of us safe.
Indeed. Thank you for your question, Kelly, and I hope that answers your question. Okay, let's have a look at our next question that's coming in from the comment section, and this is from Whaari Peka. She says, Ngam kia koutou, thank you for sharing your experience. Are you able to describe your child's recovery now? There's a kōrero around long COVID. Has there been any experience with this? And maybe if I guess we start with you, Gwen, because your tamariki have had COVID and they've come out the other end. So yeah, are you able to describe to us, how well your tamariki are doing now, and have you had experience with long COVID?
So their recovery is absolutely amazing. Like, to think a month ago or something, they would be in the way they are now, you wouldn't know that they had been through that. As in long COVID, I've read about it, but I don't think that applies to our situation. But in saying that, it's all unknown. Like, how do you know that you've got long COVID? Is it because of the symptoms, or is it because you test positive in a little while? But nothing has been. I've had no callbacks or anything about our recovery process since they've been out.
Mm-hmm. And how have your tamariki been after this experience, after this situation? Have you seen any changes with them in their behaviour and their mannerisms? Is there anything different about them at all?
Yeah, definitely a lot more cautious, a lot more wary about who's around and where they're going and so forth. And yeah, definitely changes in their mentality.
Mm-hmm. And what about for you, Des and Jamie, as parents of a tamariki? Have you seen a change within your tamariki? Have they had experiences, or do they have symptoms of long COVID?
No, not really. We thought our youngest daughter might have, because she always had trouble with breathing when she was younger. Right up till she was about 5 years old, she was in and out of hospital with breathing and things like that. We thought that might have triggered something there, but she kind of healed up the fastest. Like Jamie said, maybe the shots helped some of that, but it wasn't as bad as we thought.
And if I come to you, Turia, like, I know your tamariki didn't get COVID, but has things changed for your tamariki since this whole ordeal? Have you seen a change in their behaviour at all?
No, not necessarily. I think they're just a bit more aware now about when we hear that a whānau are isolating or have contracted the virus, that they know the go now. So they kind of have an idea about what those tamariki within that whānau may be going through. So we're grateful for that as well. We actually went through this experience. It was quite a humbling thing for us, and just grateful that Gilly and none of us, had any symptoms of any kind. But yeah, that's kind of been their biggest learning, is just having a greater understanding about the virus and the impacts it has on whānau.
Indeed. Well, thank you for sharing your kōrero around tamariki and their reaction to COVID. So thank you to Whaere Peka for your question as well. Let's look at our next question coming in from the comments section, and this is from Whai Hine. She says, "Kia ora, aku mihi aroha kia o koutou te whānau. It's great to see you all in good spirits. As Māori, we like to gather all the time regardless of the kaupapa. Is there any safety advice you have for whānau that gather? Any other advice other than what is promoted?" And maybe if I head to Otorohanga with Des and Jamie, because we know that you both come from a very large family. And so trying to answer Hene's question around safety advice for whānau that do tend to gather.
Just be cautious, be aware of yourself. I think the biggest thing we've talked with our kids about the awareness of you can't control other people's actions, but you can control your own. And so just protecting yourself is paramount in our whare now. So if Hene, if there's anything we can do as Māori, is we look after ourselves and our actions will protect everybody. So it's and it's that awareness, I think, too, of is it necessary? Should we really be doing it? Or if it's more of a want, just for time. There's things like we're doing tonight, whereas you can see them, you can't touch them, you can't feel them, but you can see them, you can hear them, you can do all of those things. So making yourself safe would be my biggest push for whānau when you go and do kaupapa.
I think as a prevention too is that just stay healthy, eat healthy, live healthy. Keep yourself motivated, fit, eat proper kai. All those things that help you survive these things, I suppose. But
And for you, Gwen, would that be a similar situation? Because we know that you too come from a very large whānau. So what would be the advice when whānau do gather?
Obviously protect yourself, and if you think there may be, even like obviously keeping your bubbles to the same bubbles, there'll be no reason to doubt that. But if you're unsure of you may caught it, then don't go and gather with your whānau. Their safety is paramount. You'll be able to catch up with them at a later time.
Indeed. And for you, Chuy and Gillies, because we know that you've got a very strong whānau base and an even larger network of friends, what would your advice be to friends and whānau about gathering and keeping each other safe?
I think just sanitize, wear your mask, and give back. I think they've played a big part of mine anyway, being vaxxed.
I think we just trust that that everyone does their best to look after themselves, and even whānau. So if everyone does their part, then we should be okay, regardless of the not, hopefully.
Indeed, some certainly good advice there. Coming your way, Whai Hine. Let's take a look at our final question for the evening, coming from the Facebook page. Again, whānau have had an opportunity to ask questions to our panelists. And this question is from Kayla, asking, those of you who isolated at home, what would you suggest whānau have on hand to help should they need to isolate at home at some point, for example, topping up anything in the first aid kit? So let's go to Otorohanga with Desmond and Jamie. What would your advice be? What would be some hints and tips for those whānau who are isolating at home?
In terms of things you need to, lots and lots of aroha for each other. And in terms of materialistic stuff, just your comfort stuff that you need. So in our household, Kayla, we like real butter. So that was first on the list to be delivered in bulk. But in terms of medical stuff, it's because the symptoms are very flu-like symptoms. Any stuff around flu, Panadol, night and days, lots and lots of hydration was key to coping. But once those kind of symptoms were over, it's more about comfort. So those things you like the most, if you're a chocolate lover, like some of like Legion Millie Worth, that was helped the aches and pains. But yeah,
mentally it was we had to look at it a different way too, because our lives are really busy, and our kids, our whānau, are always in different directions doing things, just being busy. We saw it as an opportunity, or we had to see it as an opportunity to just chill out and be at home, sort of thing, and enjoy each other's company. So yeah, we had to look at it that way, but it was good.
And if I come to you, too, because you did a period of isolating at home, and you've got a young tamariki at home. So what would be some of the hints and tips that you can offer Kayla in terms of those who are needing to isolate at home?
For me, I'd say like a babysitter, no, a live-in babysitter, no. But a lot of patience with the kids. We already have, I believe, everything that we need at home. None of us were mawiri over the time, so. But I think stocking up on those things that you may need in terms to keep yourself fit and healthy, like your meds and everything that your tamariki may have. And another thing, I guess, is just fluids of any kind that you may need to help you get through that whole process. That's what me and the kids went through a lot of, was just inu.
Nice. A lot of light refreshments indeed. Thank you, Chewy, for your answer there. So I've just been told in my ear that we've actually got two more questions to come from whānau who are tuned in at home. And thank you, everyone who are sending in your questions for our guest panelists. So let's just take a quick look at the next question that we'll see. And this is from Fire G. Tuku mihi aroha kia koutou. What is the best advice can you give to kaumātua queer if they had to walk through a similar journey like yours? And maybe if I can come to you first, Gwen. So what advice would you be able to give our kaumātua and queer if they're in a similar situation?
I definitely think that would depend on whether you're alone or whether there's a few of you. I definitely think that no kaumātua queer should be able to take this journey by themselves. So yeah, include your loved ones as much as you need them for whatever reason. No doubt about it, the support will be there.
And would that be a similar sentiment, Desmond and Jamie, in regards to advice for our kaumātua and queer? Should they contract COVID-19 or be put in a situation where they need to isolate?
Of course, yeah. Of course. I think, yeah, the call to that was I would be putting out to the wider whānau to support them. Yeah. But definitely, none of our kaumātua should ever have to walk this journey on their own.
Yeah. That's a should be a strong goal to keep our kaumātua safe and our babies as much as possible. Yeah, it would be hard for them to go through it.
And I know, Tui and Gillies, you fellows do a lot of mahi down at the pa on the marae, and so the same thing, if kaumātua and queer, if they were ever in a similar situation that you've gone through, what would be some of the advice or words of encouragement that you could share?
Probably if that, just get on the phone if they have to, and be a hoha to your whānau if that's going to get you through, just having a kōrero. But like Jamie said, I guess it's just putting it out to the wider whānau to wrap as much support and aroha around them. Because that's kind of my advice for our kaumātua and for our other whānau, just support them through it. But yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Wrapping a whole network of support around our kaumātua and queer, and we know that a lot of our kaumātua and queer, they're very resilient. They're very independent. But we know that sometimes it does take a lot to pick up the phone and ask for help. But in the same token, we know that we've got some loving whānau out there who will go the extra mile to look after our kaumātua and queer. So thank you, Whaia G, for that question. Let's take a look now at our next question, which I understand could be our last question for the evening. And this comes from Vicky. And Vicky is saying, thank you for sharing whānau this evening. There are a lot of whānau who chose not to be vaccinated, and that's their choice. However, knowing what you know now, would you say getting the vaccination helps, especially for our tamariki? And let's go anti-clockwise. So maybe if we come to you, Tui and Gillies, first. So knowing what you know now, would you say getting the vaccination helps, especially for our tamariki?
That's quite a hard question that we've also pondered over as a whānau. I hope that the vaccination helped us with Gilly's symptoms and me being negative. Both our tamariki are too young at the moment to get vaccinated, and we haven't yet made the decision whether we will get them vaccinated when it does roll out for them. But I hope so, because we're both fully vaxxed. So I hope that played a part in our symptoms, or Gilly's symptoms, and me returning negatives. But to be honest, I have no idea, and I just think each to their own. Yeah.
And what about for you, Desmond and Jamie? What's your thoughts about knowing what you know now? Would you say getting the vaccination helps, especially for our tamariki? What's your thoughts on that question?
A little bit in two minds. So initially, I'm not immunised at all. I never immunised any of my children. So when the mandate came to be vaccinated for kaiako, the decision to be vaccinated was kind of taken away from me. So hence started the hui within our own whānau around getting vaccinated. And talking to the kids about being vaccinated, because all of our children are old enough to be vaccinated. But giving them the choice, how I did with not immunising them, was a interesting concept. So basically, if I wanted to still have my mahi, then I needed to be vaccinated. Do I think our tamariki should be vaccinated, knowing what I know now and being through what I've been through? If I'm being honest, no. I don't believe that they should be vaccinated. I think they should get a choice, and I think that choice should be entirely up to them. Do I think the vaccination helped me get through COVID? Possibly. It's hard to say. The data hasn't come across convincing enough for me, I suppose, if that's the right context. But yeah. So yeah.
Thank you, Jamie, for your honest reply there. And if I can come to you, Gwen, because your situation is that I understand you're vaccinated, but your tamariki are not. So, knowing what you know now, would you say getting the vaccination helps, especially for our tamariki?
I would like to believe it does. The stats still, nobody knows exactly, but other than a big karakia, the only difference between me and my children was me being vaccinated. As whānau, we tend to share everything. I know we've always been told not to, but yeah, that's a good question. But I would like to hope so.
Indeed. Well, thank you all for sharing your thoughts this evening. And of course, thank you to our whānau who have shared their questions this evening. And we hope that the answers that's been provided by our whānau panelists this evening gives you more to think about in terms of whether or not you'll get the vaccination, the booster shots, and of course, COVID-19 and how it affects you and your whānau. Now, as I mentioned earlier on this evening, all questions will go into the draw to win a warehouse voucher to the value of $100. And we've come to that time now where we're going to draw a winner. And so a very big congratulations to this person who shared their question, and it is to Ona Murahi. So congratulations. Thank you very much for your question. Our team will be in touch with you to send that $100 warehouse voucher out to you. So congratulations. But now, before we say goodbye, good night, let's very quickly take a look at the pop-up testing and vaccination centres for tomorrow, Friday. So if you're wanting to get a test, you can do that at the Otorohanga Referee Club in Otorohanga from 10 a.m. through to midday. Te ora o Ngātai, the Centennial Park side, entry via William Street in Te Kuiti, and that's from 10 a.m. through to 4 p.m. And also at the Miriama Club in the Taumaranui from 9 a.m. through to 2 p.m. For those of you who wish to get a vaccination or a booster dose, you can head to the Te Awamutu Vaccination Centre. It's the former Bunnings site from 9 a.m. through to 4 p.m. And as you can see, also at the Countdown Otorohanga car park tomorrow from 10 a.m. through to 3 p.m. And also don't forget that there is a whānau day that is happening this weekend in Te Kuiti between 10 a.m. and 2 p.m. It's on Saturday at the Te Kuiti Domain, and then at the Centennial Park on Sunday, also from 10 a.m. through to 2 p.m. So make sure you head down and get your jabs, whether that be your first, second, or your booster shot. And also next Monday, tamariki age between 5 and 12 can get vaccinated. Ka pai. That has certainly been an interesting and informative evening. And once again, thank you very much to our whānau panelists who have joined us this evening. As we wrap up, if I can come to you, Gwen, what would be your closing remarks, especially for those who are unvaccinated and might be sitting on the fence? What would your words be there?
Be vigilant. If you're unsure, ask those questions. I noticed for myself when I wanted to be unvaccinated, but then went to the GP, asked those questions, and she was able to answer them for myself. And it was good enough to persuade me to go and get vaccinated. So take that time, go see your GP, and ask those questions that are keeping you on the fence. That's the only way you're going to know.
Thank you, Gwen. Thank you for sharing your story with us this evening. Desmond and Jamie, your final words to our whānau that are watching, those who are unvaccinated, maybe those who are sitting on the fence, those who are still a little bit undecided what to do. What would be your words to them?
From me, talk to your whānau, and unpull those worries that you have with your whānau. What about you, love?
And if you're gonna get vaccinated, make sure you want to really get vaccinated. And if you don't want to, then stick to that. Do what's better for you and your well-being. Yeah,
so do what you need to do for your well-being. Thank you very much, Desmond and Jamie, and also thank you for enlightening us with your situation this evening, Tēnā kōrua. And finally, let's head down to Tekwiti and Chui and Gilly, who have joined us this evening. What would be your final words of advice for whānau like yourselves who may be put into a situation like yourselves? What advice or what words of encouragement would you give our whānau out there?
I think do what's in here. So if you want to get it, then get it. But if you don't, then don't. Just ask the questions so you can be educated on what's in the vax and how it can help.
And just to everybody else too that maybe haven't gone through the situation, is to just show a bit of compassion and aroha, because I like for us, we didn't actually understand it fully until it actually hit us and until we went through it. And so, it was quite humbling. So just a whānau, show compassion to those, because some are doing the right thing and some still contract it. And that's not their fault. So,
Absolutely, some wonderful advice there. Compassion, showing kindness, and sharing love, and it's certainly something that we all need at this time. E te whanaunga, Gwen, Desmond, Jamie, Tuengili, e mihi ana ki a koutou katoa. Thank you very much for coming this evening and sharing with us your personal experiences, your situations, and we hope that whānau out there are able to take something from your experiences to help them along their journey. So, e mihi ana ki a koutou katoa, tēnā koutou. Well, that is us for this evening, e te iwi, and certainly a wraps for our kōrero this Thursday night. We hope that the information that has been shared with you this evening allows you to take a more confident step closer to protecting yourselves and your loved ones. Remember that MFM will keep you up to date with any breaking news and the latest developments across our various platforms, and we will be back soon for another live Q&A session here on Te Puna Kōrero or Te Nehenehenui. Thank you for joining us. Look after one another. Stay safe. Take care. Ki te kotahi te waihoe, kaura te iwi. Pōmari e.